Say it.
Are you worried at all about the size of Harris's crowds?
Oh, give me a break. Listen, I had 107,000 people in New Jersey. You didn't report it. I'm so glad you asked. What did she have yesterday? 2,000 people? If I ever had 2,000 people, you'd say my campaign is finished. It's so dishonest, the press. And here's a great example. I had in Michigan recently 25,000 people, and 25,000 people we just couldn't get them in. We had in Harrisburg 25,000 people, and 20,000 people couldn't get in. We had so many. Nobody ever mentions that. When she gets 1,500 people, and I saw it yesterday on ABC, where they said, oh, the crowd was so big. I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size. And no, they never say the crowd was big. That's why I'm always saying turn around the cameras. I'm so glad you asked that. I think it's so terrible when you say, well, she has 1,500 people, 1,000 people, and they talk about, oh, the enthusiasm. Let me tell you, we have the enthusiasm. The Republican Party, and me as a candidate, but the Republican Party has the enthusiasm because people want to see crime stopped. They want to see a country that's respected. Think of it. If I were president, you wouldn't have Russia and Ukraine, where it never happened. Zero chance.
I love how he breaks down the statistics and he starts to call a lot of these reporters out on ABS, because I've been hearing that also. I've been hearing as I go through and scroll through and look at the different videos that you guys sent me. I see that they trying to pretend like there's all of this crazy enthusiasm for Kamala Harris. I think that the honeymoon phase is over. It's absolutely over. And they wouldn't even come into Detroit. They wouldn't even really go into Michigan. They had it at an airport hangar. They never even left the airport. But if, and this is in Michigan, they brought out the governor, right? They played the rap music. They did the whole thing. They wouldn't even leave the airport hangar. They set it up in the airport. And then they bust in who they wanted to come into the airport so that they can make sure that they created an enthusiastic crowd. And they still had protesters. And they were shouting Kamala Harris down, and then they tried to make that out to be a moment. And so if you listen to MSNBC or you listen to CNN as your only news source, and that's why on the Millionaire Morning Show, what I try to do is I try to source between all of them. I react to CNN, I react to MSNBC, I compare and contrast, I go over to Fox News, I look at it, and then I draw my own conclusion, and I try to do the research. What you'll realize is that he's actually telling the truth. If anybody has ever been to a Trump rally, you cannot get in for safety reasons. You have to be there early, even when he was in New York, when he was going through that trial in New York and they wouldn't let him travel, but Biden was crisscrossing the country to try to gain enthusiasm. Biden wasn't running the numbers up. They wasn't enthusiastic to go and see Biden. And he's the president, the current serving president of the United States of America. But when Trump showed up in New York, it was banging, it was popping, and every single place that he go to, the enthusiasm is there. So much so to where I even start to question the polls. And I know that the polls is always wrong because they were wrong in 2016 when they projected Trump to be the loser and he wound up being a winner. And so when I see these polls and stuff like that, I be thinking to myself, how come nobody has ever polled me? Who are they polling and who are they talking to, right? Because they're trying to act like there's this enthusiasm. There's always going to be a honeymoon phase, right? When a candidate first gets announced or whatever like that, and they handpicked her and they gave us to her, they know that it was going to be a honeymoon phase. They get all of their Zoom calls, they get everything popping off. But if you really start to pay attention to the people and you hear the enthusiasm amongst the people, it's all for him. Even when they say, oh man, she's on TikTok, he dwarfs her numbers on social media. That is a fact.
You wouldn't have had October 7th of Israel. You wouldn't have the horrible withdrawal. And I don't mean the withdrawal because the withdrawal was fine. I was ready to withdraw from Afghanistan, and we were going to do it with dignity and strength. And we were keeping our equipment. We weren't leaving $85 billion worth of equipment behind. And we wouldn't have had.
Nobody wants to talk about that, though.
13 great soldiers. I know the families of those soldiers well. We wouldn't have had these soldiers killed, and we wouldn't have had 45 soldiers obliterated. No legs, no arms, the face. None of that would have happened. And you wouldn't have had inflation. You wouldn't have had any inflation because inflation was caused by their bad energy problems. Now they've gone back to the Trump thing because they need the votes. I don't know if you know, they're drilling now because they had to go back because gasoline was going up to $7, $8, $9 a barrel. So they said, we better do what Trump. But the day after the election, if they won, you're going to have fuel prices go through the roof. Everybody's going to be forced to buy an electric car, which they're not going to do because they don't want that. It's got a great market. It's got a market. It's really a sub-market. People want gasoline-propelled cars. They want hybrids. They want to have everything. And they want electric. But they want everybody to have an electric car. We don't have enough electricity. We couldn't make enough electricity for that. And you know what else? The weight of a car, the weight of a truck. They want all trucks to be electric. Little things that a lot of people don't talk about. The weight of a truck is 2.5 times heavier. You would have to rebuild every bridge in this country if you were going to do this ridiculous policy. So, but on crowd size, in history, for any country, nobody's had crowds like I have, and you know that. And when she gets 1,000 people and everybody starts jumping, you know that if I had 1,000 people would say, that's the end of his campaign. I have hundreds of thousands of people. In South Carolina, I had 88,000 people.
And that is absolutely true. If Trump had showed up to a place and only 1,000 people pulled up or 1,500 people pulled up, it would be looked at as abysmal. It would 100% be looked at as abysmal, and they would be saying that that's the end of his campaign. And so, of course, there's going to be a double standard because there's a spin and there's a narrative that's trying to be pushed amongst the general public. But the reality is that I see it, I know it, and the enthusiasm has been for him for a long time. I'm writing down Woodward yesterday. And a lot of people don't know what Woodward is because they've never been to Michigan in particular. But I'm riding down Woodward yesterday, and I see a huge vehicle that is basically have the whole Trump logo on it. It got the Statue of Liberty on it. It got all of this other stuff. You don't see that for Kamala Harris. You don't see, I mean, even when Barack Obama was running for president of the United States of America, the merch was crazy. People were selling it. People couldn't wait till he became president so that they could make a lot of money from it. It's not the same. And they're trying to make her out to be the new Barack Obama, but the female version of it. But you just got an extreme liberal version of what we really want inside of the White House. Tim Walz is crazy. He almost Bernie Sanders liberal. Kamala Harris, we already know that she out of her mind. And now they're trying to spin it to make it seem like there's this manufactured enthusiasm for her, and it's not. It's not. It absolutely is not. And I don't see it. You don't see it. And, anybody could try to juice up the numbers on social media, but the reality is that it's not real. Even when it came to the donating for it and all of that stuff, all of that money, the spending on the Biden side had already stopped. And the campaign donations were already what they were when it came to Biden. And then they came up and they said, oh, man, she just generated all of this money in one day. Come on, man. Come on. Stop being finesse. I'm curious as to what you guys think. Do you think that the enthusiasm is more on Kamala Harris's side, or do you think that the enthusiasm is on Trump's side? Let me know inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, teach Hanley 40% off your first order, 20% off of life. I love you. I appreciate you. Can't wait to see what you guys say inside of the comments. Peace.